Do you think the devil made him do it?
Do you remember now? Do you remember now?
I liked earlier, Cameron, when you were quoting it, and you kept saying, you're like, huh? What's your name? What are you saying? Where am I? What? Huh?
Yeah, dude, he was pissing me off. I was like...
When he was talking to that one, he's like, I am the general. And then he just like kept repeating, are you playing with me? And he's like, this is your boss? What a drag.
And that's what, we have to dissect that, because there's scenes like that where he's like, what, general? And I'm just like, wait, so he doesn't remember? I'm like, I don't understand what's going on. He just makes you think that he's like weak and pathetic.
It felt like it was directed by Stanley Kubrick. I was like, holy cow.
Yeah, this movie made Zodiac look like a fast-paced movie.
This was a movie, well, obviously it was recommended by Lindy May, thank you very much. And it was also, she said, it was one of Bong Joon-ho's favorite movies. I was going to ask, how many times did it take you guys to get through this movie? Because I fell asleep twice. It's like, is it not noir?
No, the movie genre it is slow. Holy
yeah, it's crime
shit.
drama. Yeah. The second half was more horror. When he finds that monkey with the X on his throat, I was like, what is going on?
Yeah, so similar to Ty, first time I turned it on, I watched like 10 minutes. I understood zero of what was going on, and I was like, I don't understand who is who, what is happening, and so I just stopped it. I was like, okay, I'll come back. And a week later, I was like, all right, let's give this another shot. And I got 40 minutes in, and I was like, or 30 minutes in, I was like, it's not cutting it, dude. I can't do it. And then I stopped it, and then because I still was just like, I don't understand what's going on. And I just met the guy who, he was just the beach scene. And I was just like, what movie am I watching? Why is he just like, I don't know. What beach am I on?
I thought he was like a kidnapped victim or something. And he was like, I don't know what happened because I was just attacked or something. And he was clocked on the head.
Yeah. And so I just initially was just like, what the fudge? And then after talking to Jordan, he's like, okay, no, yeah, but the twist at the end makes it like all worth it. It's like really good payoff. And I was like, oh, okay. So then the next day I went back and sat down, and as soon as they started interrogating him, as soon as they got the detective in the same room as him, I was like, okay, yeah, this is like, they just needed more scenes with those two guys together. And I loved also the like psychiatrist. I thought he was really good too, because he's kind of like the sanity, but at the same time a little bit gullible, where he's just like,
wait, Cameron, was he the same guy in the room that was trying to scratch off the X off the wall? He's like, I don't know what this is.
yeah, oh my gosh, he started losing it.
When he was trying to pull off the X off the wall, I burst out laughing. Oh my gosh.
It's like Mamia or whatever. As soon as it started getting to that, I was pretty invested, and then immediately after it finished, I was just like, I called Jordan. I was like, what the fudge did I just watch? I'm like, I don't understand. I was like, and he's like, and Jordan was like, oh yeah, I don't understand either. So that's what I was hoping we could discuss and figure out what's going on, because I was like,
well, I'm so glad, Ty, you sent me that link to the YouTube, because I was able to watch it a second time. Because the first time we bought this really quick, I bought it on Blu-ray and it came with a DVD. I sent Ty the copy of the DVD and I watched the Blu-ray. So YMS used to talk about Region Blu-ray disc all the time, and I'm like, I don't understand anything he's talking about. But I just learned that getting this Blu-ray is like, you can only watch Region A's in America unless you have like a Universal Blu-ray player. Anyways, but somebody on Reddit said if you spam the pop menu button, then it'll take you right to the menu, even on this disc. Not on all discs, just this one. But I'm sorry, Ty, you wasted your Region Switch on your PlayStation. I looked everywhere, I couldn't find it, and then you found a link on YouTube, and I'm like, oh crap. But I'm glad I own it on Blu-ray, because on YouTube, it doesn't always stay there because the copyrights.
Back in middle school, the Pokemon movie was on YouTube, but it was mirrored, and then like one or two
sections.
Scenes. Yeah, no, it was the full movie, but it was just mirrored, and then some scenes it would just like pause, and then it would continue, and I was like, what the fudge?
Cameron, did you finish what it was like watching the first time?
Yeah, well, watching for the podcast was my first time. Probably will be my last. I might rewatch parts of it, and I watched there was only one YouTube video I could find on an explainer, and it made me even more confused because they dove into like the energy of the universe and transferring, and I was like, how do I understand less of this movie?
Yeah, well, there was one shot like of the ceiling, and it looked like the stars you could like see.
Yeah, I was like, and then what is going on?
And then all of a sudden water starts dripping. I'm like, what is happening?
It's like Shutter Island at
similar
parts.
to, yeah, similar to you guys watching it the first time. I didn't really know what was going on. And I kept falling asleep because there's so many moments where it's just like no music, just long, drawn out. The beginning did remind me of, I just rewatched the episode of Rick and Morty, the interdimensional cable, when the guy's like, he's like, here's the gun. He's like, I wonder who the killer is. And he's like, here's the knife. I killed the person. They're like, guilty. Yeah, let's get right into the movie. I'm excited. Oh, I did rewatch it. There's a lot of little things that, like, watching it a second time, I'm like, okay, that whole beginning actually makes sense now. Because watching the first time, you're like, what does any of this have to do? Like, what's going on here, you know?
The plot itself is just like something I've never seen. Like hypnotism in serial killer, maybe cult. It's like, what? And the energy of the universe and stuff like that. And they were talking about magnetism as well. And I was like, I'm so lost. Mom, yeah. That was a scene I didn't understand as well. Is because I thought he like made the guy kill his wife, and then I thought that guy who killed his wife jumped out the window, and then he
jumped out the window.
And
that
then I was
weird.
like,
the detective.
He reminded me of the cop from Memories of Murder, the guy who drop kicks people, like the guy who loses kill every once in a while, or loses like cool, and he's like.
You said hypnotizing. He also uses psychology because he finds people that, based on that, he finds their weakness, like their.
Tell me about yourself. I can't remember.
Oh yeah. He tries to get to know them.
That's his line. He would always say, "Tell me about yourself," because they'd be like, "Where are you from?" And he's like, "I can't remember. Tell me about yourself."
Oh, interesting. Yeah, he does get to know them really quick.
Or does he?
Did he do it in time? Because he started to draw an X. I love that little detail where he's eating lots of food and he has an appetite before he didn't have an appetite. If you noticed, there was at the hospital or whatever that was, there was one shot and it was just for a split second. It almost looked like somebody rolling in somebody on an Hannibal Lecter thing and a woman with their throat slit.
I thought it was his wife. Yeah.
I think it was his wife. Yeah. It's crazy. Those flashes when he was leaving the place after he saw the monkey and stuff, and he starts like seeing images in his head. Those were amazing cuts. I felt crazy.
Is there if I go into like my two favorite things, just kind of along these lines? Like that was probably one of my favorite things. I think they did a great job of what you're mentioning is creating a protagonist who's like his power is more than himself, because that what makes him even that much more menacing. Because even I think a great setup scene for it was the scene where he finally tracks him down and he's in that room and he can't find where his voice is coming from, and how he just like keeps fumbling around and stumbling, and you're just so on edge because you know what this guy's done, and you're like, oh my gosh. And same with, there's multiple scenes with like other people. I just think they did a great job of building tension with, like, for example, the scene with the guy who is hypnotized and he keeps walking up, and I couldn't tell if he was holding a spoon or a knife when he did the X on like the bodyguard. But I'm pretty sure he was holding something, because then the guy was like, wait. And then the bodyguard was like, wait, why are we waiting? I need to detain this dude. Are you bitching kidding me? So I'm like, let's see what happens. And so I just think they did a great job of setting suspension for that. And that's what made the scenes with him. It made it in like so much fear. Because that's that thing when it's one of those things that I think if done correctly is so amazing for a villain, is like calm and peace, like peacefulness found in a villain is very like jarring and horrifying. Because when you see like obviously it's really good sometimes done like the Joker where it's just manic, but even the Joker has moments kind of like calmness and just like, you know what, like I'm confident in what's gonna go on. That you're just kind of like, you're like, why are you so confident and like calm? This is scary. And I think that's what he does really well. He just in a lot of scenes sets it up to where it makes you feel like, what the fudge is going on? Like he knows something that they don't, because then he occasionally will like seems like he's like cognitive and like will talk to you, and then he just like as soon as there's a chance to like pounce on him, he kind of goes back into, why am I here, who are you? And you're just like, gosh dang it, you freaking.
Oh, and when he's like, don't look at me, and it's just, it gave me chills. And he even said when he was arguing with them and he tried to hypnotize him the first time with the light and then he hit it at his hand, he's like, I can forgive my wife, but I can't forgive you. And I think once he killed him, he essentially gave in, and that's when he lost.
Well, I think as my interpretation of what the movie like Cure means, I think because he was the only person who was able to survive it, if you're kind of going the cosmic energy, almost like a curse route, I think a way to interpret it is like the kid would pass the curse through people, but then the police officer, because he was vulnerable and broken, I think it didn't take him over. And so that's why it just got passed on to that girl. and that he will continue to infect others as that other guy did. And I think because the kid who he shot 9 times in the head was also broken, and so that's why I didn't kill him, and he would just transfer it to others. So he's now the vessel that would transfer it to people. And that's what I think, potentially going along with kind of my theory, that's why I think that the cure also naturally brings out the worst part in you, and like that worst desire in you. And for people that haven't confronted that, it overtakes them, and it kind of they just easily fall like to it. But this cop, who is like his entire life has had to battle that with that, clearly, because I mean he's trying to beat up like the guy every 30 seconds and like try to beat the crap out of him because he won't give him the information that he wants. Having to fight those demons consistently, I think, has made him stronger.
Yeah, and it's like there's a part of our brain, like our moral, it's just that's preventing us to like essentially kill or do something horrible to people we hate, because it's just like he opens up that gate. Like,
no, I don't believe it. I think it's a scam.
Well, the guy even said in the movie that you can't hypnotize somebody to kill somebody. Can somebody commit suicide to it? Because that one guy commit quote unquote suicide, but I'm like, oh wait, was he killed by somebody before he could kill somebody? No, the doctor at the very end, they're like, he killed himself. Remember they found the handcuffs?
Yeah, the psychiatrist.
Oh, sorry, psychiatrist. I thought he was a doctor.
No, yeah, so the psychiatrist. Yeah, he did kill himself. I said that he like cuffed himself and then strangled himself.
But I love they didn't show it, because the whole time I'm like, wait a minute, did somebody get to him first? I'm
curious, do you guys think that he actually has amnesia? Because there was moments where I'm like, okay, I think he has amnesia, but there was also moments where I'm like, whoa, you just acted really normal for a second when you wanted to. That's kind of sketch. Like, for example, with the police chief, he kept saying, yes. Who are you? What am I doing here? And then he's like, answer my question. And he's like, what question would you like me to answer, police chief? And you're like, wait, whoa, he just remembered that. And he was like being really confrontational and made this guy look like an absolute fool. And so he only would be conscious and like cognitive when he was in the upper hand and could like essentially embarrass or like take advantage of somebody. He's such like, all you guys are too easy to fool.
There was a moment though, he said that he was outside himself, and like he's like all of him is outside. So I just feel like,
or outside, all my lids are on the inside.
Exactly. So I almost feel like it's like he's got this like aura about him, and only things that are actually important that will help further his plan will suddenly come to him. Well, because there was even a part where he was like on top of the roof and he just threw himself off it. It was just like he was just like he was literally going wherever it was pulling him. Another kid threw himself out the window, but he was on top of a roof.
Hey, come down from there! You can't be up there. And he just jumps and he's like, "What the heck?"
And just really quick, I want to say 2 favorite things. I love that you don't know, like, I love how mysterious and dubious this movie is. You never know, like, if the main cop, he's so awesome, by the way, and I also agree, I love him.
Amazing performance.
You don't know if he's hypnotized so many times. When he's sitting next to him and all those officers are there interrogating him, like, and he leans to him and says, "You're different than the rest of them." And he slowly looks at him. You think, "Oh no, is he hypnotized?" But then he grabs his face and throws him against the wall. So good. And then the second thing I just wanted to mention really quick is, oh my gosh, the lighting in this is so good. There's so many times where people are hiding in the dark. The guy is constantly, he goes in the dark rooms and he just has the light off and he just sits in there. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is so eerie. Like, come in the light where I can see you so I know what you're doing. It's so many good moments like that. So
yeah, it's almost like Japanese Denny. Just a lot of really Denny Villeneuve. A lot of unloaded shots and just like shots of the water moving on the ground, and you're like, okay. It has the pacing of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and Zodiac together. So if you're in for a 2-hour and 45-minute movie, just like, well, except this one's only like an hour 50, but and then for not much to happen until about an hour and 20 in, where you're like, okay, now I'm in.
The only reason I can see him finally eating and being happy is because he killed the guy, like finally ended it all. Because there was such a, like, as he was shooting him, like, because the guy was trying to explain himself, and he's like, I'm done. This all you've done is ruined so many lives.
I don't care what your answer is, because you're just going to lie to me, so I'd rather just put 9 bullets in your head.
Yeah, and I'm not going to play your game anymore. Yeah. It's like the game's over.
No, yeah, I'm gonna end the game by stop playing. And that kind of goes along with, like, my second favorite thing, and what I thought is just so well done in this movie is just the show don't tell with relationships and just kind of context of situations. Because it was a really funny quote from my sister-in-law, Paige, she actually mentioned, she was just like, I don't understand how movies, because she was talking about Stranger Things and how they have like 8 episodes and a lot of the episodes are over an hour. She's like, I don't understand how a movie can like develop characters in under like 2 hours. And that's why, because that's what gets into the show Don't Tell. Because like they could have spent 35 minutes on their relationship so easily and just show, oh, he has such a miserable life. But instead they do little things like her constantly turning on the washing machine, and you're just like,
dryer, yeah.
oh my gosh, like it's so annoying, and you're not even there, and you just feel bad for him because like he never will ever like confront her about it because he knows that she doesn't even know that she's doing it. And so that's what, and it also makes the scenes like it's even sadder when he sees her like, I thought she killed herself, and I was like, oh my gosh. And then you see that he's just like losing his mind, and he can't tell her because he knows that she has too much on her mind. And so it like there's just so much to do with his character. That's like, that is even part of the show Don't Tell, that it's done so well that you're kind of, there's so many parts that are ominous that make you question. And that's why it kind of feels similar to Zodiac, because at the end of Zodiac you're like, oh, they never caught him, and you're like, well, and it doesn't even give you like a satisfying feeling of like, oh, don't worry, you're safe. Like the bad guy's probably put behind bars. You're like, you really have no idea. This guy who probably was in jail, and he died in jail. We never got Zodiac letters after he died in jail. So probably, maybe it was him. Maybe he's just out there. And so there's just so many different things that I think are just done really well to show the circumstances, especially with the background of the detective, because he's the like essentially the driving force of the plot, because everything kind of revolves around him. And so that's what, like at the climax, that's what makes everything kind of that much more, because he's just like, your wife's broken, your like life's falling apart. Because then he's essentially saying it's similar to the Joker with Batman. He's just like, you were like this, I like Harvey Dent was this white knight and I broke him, and the only way you can stop me is to break your one rule. And that's what essentially the cop was like, yeah, I'm breaking my rule. I'm gonna murder the out of you, dude.
Oh, one last thing I wanted to mention too that I really loved was every time he was in the bus, it looked like he was in a dream. Like, because it was clouds behind the window.
Yes, it looked like he was flying.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say, though, is just for, like, a nitpick, is just maybe pacing-wise. It's just because, like, I don't mind a slow movie, but because, for example, like, a movie example that he could follow kind of the, and Jordan always says I mention it at least once a podcast, but a great kind of template is kind of the Inglourious, of just because it's a super slow paced film that like it comes out with a bang. So it starts off with just like one of the most intense scenes, if not the most intense scene of the movie, that you're just like, it creates the enemy and it creates just this feeling for the show that I think carries you through some of the parts that might seem like a lull, versus this movie didn't really have that in the beginning. And so I didn't even know who was the protagonist and antagonist until like 40 minutes into the movie. And I'm like, okay, this guy's a creepy guy. This cop is a good guy who's struggling at home and just his life in general. And so I actually feel like maybe just having something, I don't know.
It was kind of nice though, because I mean, I feel like we're so overstimulated in these years. Like it's just like kind of nice to like watch an older film where it's not constant. Like I was nervous too when I was starting it. I'm like, oh no.
Who was it that gave the recommendation? Because she's given some great recommendations.
Yeah, Lindy May.
Yeah,
I know.
May.
Oh, speaking of recommendations, I just bought A Bittersweet Life on Blu-ray. Oh my gosh, and it's in my top 100. So good.
I have one of those that I mentioned to Jordan before the pod that I'll mention on what I'm looking forward to watching.
Leave us in suspense, Cameron, just like this movie. Draw it out. Do we recommend it?
If you're patient.
Yeah.
That's the thing that was hard for me, is because most shows that are slow burners, I can kind of just like be on my phone for the first 20 minutes till it kind of gets into it or something like that. But this one, it's all subtitles, so I'm like, if I'm gonna watch, I can't just listen in the background. I have to read. And so
it's a detective movie, so all the little details matter.
Yeah,
You're like,
and so it's
oh
just,
gosh.
I'm like,
It reminds me of True Detective, where the first 3 episodes, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so hard to get through, but then it totally pays off at the end. It's like this movie, but that's 3 hours of episodes like the beginning of this movie. Imagine that. I fell asleep so many times to it. I gave up on those movies a long time ago. I don't know why you still watch Disney garbage.
That's impressive.
Actually, I don't know how you can watch that, but you won't go watch a movie directed by Taika Waititi. Yeah, I was pretty ticked about Thor. Black Panther. I fell asleep in the movie. So boring. Captain Marvel. I can't believe you saw that.
Yeah, I watched that while playing Mario Kart. Me and Grant had it in the background while we were playing Xbox, and we almost turned it off as a background movie. We were like, this hurts. We paused it one time and we were just like, this is so dumb. And so we turned on the volume and just put on subtitles. Get some new ideas, Marvel. Warner Bros. Copyright them, please. Someone needs to keep Marvel in check.
No, Disney probably sued them. They're like,
We had the idea first. Just because you filmed it first didn't mean we didn't come up with the idea first.
So you haven't seen the newest episode of Better Call Saul yet? I started it. Whatever they do next, I'm excited. I just hope Disney doesn't try to buy them. Be like, no, don't do it.
Well, I think the Multiverse of Madness and Thor: Love and Thunder are both just Taika Waititi and Sam Raimi directing a movie, like directing how they want to direct, and then just not really caring about how it deals with the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that kind of affects the movie a lot and makes it really, really bad. Well, and it just feels like there's no cohesion, and I'm like, what is the purpose of this movie? I don't understand what's going on.
That was Thor too. They jam it down your throat.
Korg is rocks like that, like they.
And that girl is
Valkyrie. Yeah, she like a tomboy.
A tomboy. Well, Taika's jokes were still funny. That's why I went and saw it. It's so bad. And then this one kid, he's like, I no longer go by that name. I identify with a different name. I'm like, oh my gosh, kill me now.
Oh yeah, Heimdall's son. I was like, what? I'm like, your dad is Heimdall, one of the most bad characters in Marvel, and then you're like, I go by a different name because of the name of a banned person here on Earth, and I'm like, okay. He changed it from like, it was like a Jake to like a Jesse. It was like like similar sounding ish. I'm like, well, okay. I haven't been on in a while, so there's a lot of things I've seen. I watched Can't Buy Me Love. It was a recommendation from one of my friends from work. It came out in '87. It's a fun one. It's got like the vibe of 10 Things I Hate About You, except like not focusing on what's his name, Heath Ledger. Like it's essentially the plot of Joseph Gordon-Levitt's like love interest. It's kind of like that vibe where it's a nerdy kid. This kid pays this girl the hottest, most popular girl in the school who he mows her lawn. He pays her $1,000 to be his girlfriend for a month so he can become popular. It's the movie that made Patrick Dempsey like kind of like a heartthrob. And he's really good in it. It's fun.
What out of 10, Karen?
A solid 6 out of 10 for me. And then I've watched, because I don't think I've ever fully sat down and seen any pirate movie start to finish. And so I was like,
the first one's
I watched
good.
Pirates of the Caribbean, the first one. Great movie. Holy cow, really fun. Johnny Depp's really great in that.
Yeah, now you see why he got stuck in that role.
Yeah, because he did such a good job. And then I still got 30 minutes left of the second one, but we're probably going to watch that tonight, me and Kelsey. But yeah, really fun. Second one too. I think it's crazy that...
Yeah, I actually like the second one.
It's crazy that Davy Jones is the dad from About Time. The first Pirates I gave 8 out of 10. Second Pirates right now, it's 7. Borderline, depending on how it finishes, maybe 8. It's just kind of like an entertaining movie where I'm like, I don't really understand the whole point of all this. And it just kind of seems like, it's kind of like a Mad Max plot line of just like, let's just run around. But I'm like, as long as you keep me entertained, like, I'm good. I thought that was really cool. And I thought his like cronies and guys were really cool. I thought his dad was like good too. Skarsgård's dad. Yeah, Thor: Love and Thunder. I don't know. I just like... Man, Christian Bale, mwah. There's a couple scenes where I was like, holy amazing. Fudge, dude. Like during that creepy scene where he's in the back of the cage with the kids, I was like, what the fudge? And he's like, oh no, please keep telling your stories. And I was like, what the dude, should not be in a PG-13. So yeah.
Well, it should be in a PG-13, but not a kids movie, and Disney is trying to make it a kids movie. Well, that's what upset me.
And that's the thing I think is funny too, is just there's really conflicting tones of just like
yes, try that ending
of Dread
that turned into Hook when all the kids are fighting. I was like, oh
what?
No.
And yeah, Thor just gives his powers to people, and he's just like, for this battle, you have the power. I'm like, well, why didn't you do that in Endgame and just make everyone Thor? And I'm like, you would have just absolutely whooped. I'm like, and there's just so many things that I was just like, that doesn't really make sense. To hold the mantle of Thor is like supposed to be some super special cool thing, and then she's just like, oh, I heard it calling to me, and now I'm like Thor, and it'll cure my cancer. And it's like, oh, but but it's not healing me. I'm like, this makes
they were bashing God too, and they were like bashing religion.
Jordan,
it was just
like,
what? Oh my gosh,
I hated the God scene. That scene was like the most they mentioned 3 times in a
and I'm
kids
like,
movie. I'm like,
kids should not be watching this, but that's the problem, Cameron, is it's PG-13 and it shouldn't be a kids movie, but they're trying so hard to tailor it because they know parents are going to take their kids to these Disney movies.
Which just means more money. Because Russell Crowe, multiple times, he's like, oh, let's talk about the God or whatever, and then he says to Thor, he's like, you're not invited to the... He's like, you be careful, I'm not going to invite you to the... And I'm just like, are we really saying this in a Marvel movie right now? Like, is this really what's happening? So yeah, I don't know. There was just... Man... Get Christian Bale in every movie ever, because that dude is a fetching master.
He was the best part of it. That the reason I gave it, I think, 2 stars because of him. I think that's it. And Taika's jokes.
Yeah. The more I talk about...
Oh, Cameron, the more I think about it, the more I hate it.
Yeah.
Like, I actually, at first I was like, I laughed at a few jokes, and then the more I thought about it as I walked away, I'm like, I hate that movie.
No, absolutely. Because my initial reaction, I turned to because our boss paid for us to go for work because we done really good or whatever. And she's like, oh yeah, we'll take you guys to like a matinee showing. And my first initial reaction was like, well, I was entertained, so maybe a 7. And then I like talked about it for like 30 seconds, and I was like, okay, 6. And then just the more I talk about it, I'm just like, I hate this. It's probably I would say somewhere between 4 or 5 for me. I mean, and that's coming from someone whose guilty pleasure is superhero. Hunt for the Wilder People is in my top 10, so Thor Ragnarok's to top 100 for me. And I don't think it's there anymore, but I don't know, maybe.
Well, he also did a great episode of Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Amazing. Like, he's been able to work normally really well with Disney.
Yeah, but this one was, and it just felt like nothing happened. And just the plot made no sense.
Well, and the girl she's perfect. The only problem is she has cancer, but it's not actually a flaw.
Yeah, and she perfectly figures out how to be Thor. I'm just like, what? And then also, I hated the fact that Disney and Marvel...
They're not relatable.
Not only that, but they're so scared to create villains. They, like, for example, Gore was only bad because of the sword. I'm like, no, that was pissed off because his daughter died, and then a god mocked him to his face, so he said... I'm going to kill you. And he stabbed the god in the throat. And that's when he became the god butcher.
You shouldn't believe in God, but you should believe in Thor. Worship Disney. Don't forget.
Yeah. We had a double date night with one of my best friends and his wife. They just recently got married. And we watched Ghost Town for probably the 7th time for me. Such a fun one. Ricky Gervais is so fun. I love his cynicism. And then I watched episode of Disney Survivor. Kelsey's watching that with Kiefer Sutherland. It's decent. She's obsessed with it. She loves it. I think it looks like what I watched. I was like, oh yeah, it's kind of fun. It's for me, it looked like PG 24. That's kind of like the vibe I got. But it's just kind of like, oh, what's going on? Like taking down these bad guys. And it's kind of like that drama and stuff like that. And then I also watched the new season of The Boys. Mixed emotions. But I grew to love a lot of characters. But yeah, there was just a couple character arcs
that felt unfulfilled. They spent too much time
unfulfilled.
on Frenchie.
Yeah,
and
no
his
one gives
girl.
a fuck about Frenchie and that fetching Kimiko, bro. Screw them. No one give
so
them
much
so
time
much,
on them.
Yeah,
Why?
I don't care. Yeah, and that he's like likable. I'm like,
because he's nice to her.
I don't know. But oh my gosh, dude, the scenes of fetching the new character that's introduced, I love him. He's so good. And then also,
he's amazing.
Oh my gosh, dude. Jordan, my favorite line is just I wish I could have raised you better. He's like, instead of turning you into such a pathetic, weak and he's like, but now you're too far gone, and like now I have to kill you.
It was amazing. Yeah, him and their dynamic, and I love
Soldier Boy.
Yeah, Soldier Boy and obviously Homelander.
Yeah. And then just finished the new season of Stranger Things. Not obviously my favorite season, but I thought it was pretty fun. Part 2 was wrapped up pretty well. And dude, I thought great acting by like Maxine and Lucas. Like that scene where he's just like, and she's like, I don't want to go. And I was almost tearing up. I was like, wow, dang, that was super sad.
That's crazy to me because the first episode was so bad.
Yeah. And then what I'm looking forward to is just, I saw there was an Idris Elba movie of like In the Jungle. It looks so stupid. Oh my gosh. Well, it's just because he punched a lion in the face. I was like, there's no way in you would punch a lion. I also watched some scenes from Journey to the West and showed Kelsey. So fetching funny. Gosh, dang it, dude. And when she's like, don't move. Yeah. Yeah. So just a movie I'm going to recommend that it kind of looked like in the same vein as that is RRR. I don't know if you heard of it. It's this Indian movie. I'll send a trailer. It has 84 million views on YouTube. And it's just...
But they're all from...
Oh, yeah. But it looks like the cheesiest action movie I've ever seen in my life. But it's like a guy, like... I'll just show you the trailer.
Film.
Yeah, it's a Bollywood film. But it just looks so, like, Journey to the West.
There's so many
funny.
people in India, they're pushing their movies up on the top 100 movies in IMDb. I'm like, no, keep your movies out of this. I mean, if they're genuinely good, then I'm going to check them out. But if it's like, it's just because that's the only movies you've got, like, come on. That probably sounded racist. I promise I'm not. I like good movies.
Whoa. And thank you. What's her name? I always forget her name. Who recommended this?
Lindy May.
Lindy May. You're the best. Keep up the recommendations. Peace. Do you remember now?
Bye.